Oops.
Got it.
Are
In
we
your
on?
life, guys.
All right, we're live. Nobody's looking at this first part, so.
Yeah.
Well, probably not a bad idea to do this anyway, because people start getting notices,
Yep.
and they'll, have time to almost start us at the beginning.
Yep. Say hi, guys. You're on.
Welcome to our podcast. Right?
Yeah. Is that coming through on the mic,
Probably.
Carolyn?
Hold
Is
on.
Troy watching?
Let's see. Here we go.
Can you hear us? Oh yeah, Joe's got his.
Yep. You're
Perfect.
on.
Can you hear Scott? Say something, Scott.
Something else.
Something else.
The dogs wore out now.
Got it? Okay.
Where that dog got, Mina?
He does. Okay, guys. Sounds good, everybody.
Come here, you. What are you doing? What are you
Thumbs
doing?
up from Second Wind.
All right. Thank you. Second wins.
Don't forget him.
Don't forgive him.
Don't forget him.
Oh, don't forget him, right? Nope. We ain't gonna forget him.
Okay.
Don't forget your second win.
Go ahead and start talking, guys.
Sooner or later, you'll feel that momentum kicking. Remember that song?
What was
Billy
it?
Joel.
Oh no, what was it?
Second win.
I never heard that one. I didn't hear a lot of rock songs.
I know.
I kind of got in the hole with country for a while.
Me too.
You tell
I'm back to metal.
you listen to all, you back to metal?
Maiden.
Yeah, you listen to all of it.
Ooh.
I'm jealous.
Don't be.
You've heard more good music than I have.
What? I'm deaf now. I had the speakers at 11.
Yes.
Your damn dog is going to eat that ball in it.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right, so we just
Well, we're up and ready to roll tonight. And we're going to get rolling.
yep. Hope somebody's listening. If you ain't, try us again at 5:59.
Yeah, we're good.
Yes, it's 5:59. You got
It's
9
6.
people on.
Oh, we're ready to go.
Oh, okay. We're ready to go.
All
man.
right.
We're ready to go. Hi, folks. Glad we got a few watching. Well, Mr. Sinclair, what do you think? What do you think about our topic for the evening?
You know, I think we sit here and talk about sport dogs, talk about personal protection dogs, guard dogs, sometimes talk about hot dogs.
Hey, we do on
One of my
occasion.
favorite ones.
We do on occasion. Yep.
But you know, there's other forms of dogs or needs for dogs. And
Needs. Yeah.
would you have to have anything particularly you thought about or think we could touch? It's not common, but it's a necessity and it's more than what people think.
Oh yeah. You know, there's the one. Of course, I don't call the dogs we train here protection dogs or personal or executive.
Mhm.
I like to think of them as a security dog because we train them strictly for that purpose, to secure person or property, right?
Yep.
And over the years, I'll tell you something that's funny. When I opened the guard dog company in El Paso, I didn't realize the number of people that would gravitate to someone, especially if when you're licensed by your state government or whatever. You open yourself to a broader range of inquiries. Let's put it that way. People looking for your services because you automatically get this step above.
Mm-hmm.
So the number and types of dogs I could have trained because I was in the guard dog business are just it was shocking to me.
Right.
It was shocking. So the example, not the weirdest, possibly the most lucrative offer I ever got. I had drug dealers call me from other islands out in the Caribbean and such as that, off the Bahamas, and want me to, they wanted certain dogs but the dog had to be guaranteed to be able to remove a body part and things like this, But the most fun I ever had with a potential customer, I got a call from a guy one day, and I don't know if you remember this or if you had any reason to even know it existed, but there was a magazine called Soldier of Fortune.
Mm-hmm.
You heard of it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this was the Mercenaries magazine, right? And you know, there were classified ads in the back, you know, for wanted, you know, 200 men to go to Tangiers and all this sort of stuff. And it was, I guess it was legit. It'd been around for years, and that was, you know, we didn't have the internet, so that was how all these potential soldiers of fortune, one way for them to communicate, right? So I wasn't really aware of the magazine at that time. I get a phone call one day from a guy, and he starts right in asking me questions about how I train dogs and the kind of dogs I train. And this was just about the time that the Argentine Doggo had come into this country, and I got with one of the first breeders to ever have doggos, and I love their looks. They're big, like, you know, pit bulls on steroids. Mm-hmm. So this character calls me, and he asks a ton of questions about the doggos. What are their physical capability? What's the difference between a sentry dog, and he was using a lot of military terms, sentry dogs, such as this, and this kind of dog and that kind of dog. Finally, come out, he says, well, here's the deal. I've got a compound near the Colorado-New Mexico border, which was my first red flag, and I'm looking for some guard dogs. He said, but I looked into your background and your business, and I think that there's a market for more dogs like you train. He said those big white ones would be really something we'd like to see. So, you know, I said, okay, well, what's your organization? Let me look into you, like you've looked into me. And he said, well, you won't find much out there. I said, well, let me look. So, I've got friends in high places. So I got the guy's name, or the name he gave me, and he was right. I didn't come up with squat. So next phone call, I said, give me your offer. He said he wanted somebody to come up there that knew dogs, breed their own dogs, and train them. And he had a market amongst other people who do the same work he does to sell all these dogs. And he said we would be like kind of partners. He said, you could come up here, I'll give you a house, I'll give you salary, I'll give you, we'll split any dogs we sell 50-50. It was a really lucrative offer. It was a nice salary. I forget what it was at the time, but the mid-90s. But I'm thinking, that's tempting, right? And then the more we talked, he said that magic word. He said, because I'm going to be on his property. He said he had 100 and some odd acres, and the dogs patrol them. And he says, we'd be like partners. You breed and train the dogs. I know the market. I know a lot of other people like me. This old boy, I'm not real sure, but I would bet money he was very right-handed. Mm-hmm. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, whenever someone says, my cardinal rule in business is real simple when it comes to people that want to be partners. My daddy told me, said, son, don't ever start a business partnership with anybody you haven't known for at least 100 to 110 years. And that way, you'll never get screwed.
Yep.
So, I thanked him. I hung up. I then found his name in the Soldier of Fortune magazine. He gave me some references. And, essentially it was like one of these paramilitary groups. And I guess he literally really did supply and train people to go out and be soldiers of fortune. So that was the strangest one.
Yeah.
And we communicated together for a month or so, and it got spookier and spookier as it went along. But fun business, huh?
Yep. You never know what doors you open and you close other ones, huh?
Yeah, exactly. But I was talking about doing something on domestic violence people.
Mm-hmm.
So I was reading the Dallas Morning News. I'll never forget it as long as I live. This is after I started the company. I'd had guard dogs officially licensed for about probably 3 or 4 years at this point. I'm in El Paso, Texas, which is why I read the Dallas Morning News. I didn't read that good of Spanish. No offense, El Paso Times. But they had a story in the Sunday magazine section, they called it, about a lady, a victim of domestic violence. She had a child by her ex, and he was a violent person. And out of fear, she had a restraining order against him, but restraining orders, they really work well in the bathroom, if you get my drift.
Mm.
So she had purchased, I think it was a shotgun, and she was going to make sure that he didn't come back and beat her up anymore. And the way the story went was he pulled up there one afternoon, and she stepped out on, if I remember right, it was like I picture like a front porch or something. And she's telling him to, get in his car and leave, and he talks her enough, distracts her enough to get up close to her, grabs a shotgun, jerks it out of her hand, turns it around. And so it was a terrible story.
Mm.
And I got kind of curious about what women do in that situation. When I started looking at stats, I was surprised to find out it's reflex if you're in Texas. Get a gun. Right, Scott?
That's it.
That'd be what you tell most. If someone came to you and said, I got this guy stalking me, what would you tell them?
Well, changed now, but get a gun.
Get a gun, yeah.
You can have it.
Yeah, now.
You're growing trees out here.
Yeah.
According to everybody else in the country, that ain't no jack, but
Yeah.
get a gun.
Get a gun. So there were statistics, and remember, this is 15, 20 years, more than that, over 20 years ago. And I'm not remembering all the details, but a large number of the women domestic violence victims that are killed by their abusers are killed with their own gun. It seems that women have a greater inhibition against, first off, shooting or killing anything, and then shooting even some slime ball who's been beating them up is difficult for them. And you gotta realize that most of these women that have been in an abuse situation for years and years, these old boys program them. They literally brainwash them. They could be interrogators for Kim Jong-un in North Korea. They're that good at manipulating people's emotions. That's how they get control of these poor women. So if they come back in return, they're going to be sweet talking them and I'm sorry and all this, and they're going to get up close enough to grab the gun like this old boy did and take him out. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to get on my bar stool, my speeching stool for just a moment here, and the most effective tool there is for any domestic violence victim is a trained dog. I started working a training system shortly a year or two after reading this. I was doing some security for a lot of women's clinics and was consulting with them nationwide. This is at a time when some people were shooting doctors and things of that nature. And so I got deeper into the whole thing, and what I decided I would do is I trained 2 dogs, 2 shepherds. Turned out incidentally to be females, and I've used female shepherds ever since, kind of an irony. And if any woman brought me a restraining order or a hospital bill to prove that they were really in trouble, I would loan them those dogs for 60 days. And we didn't do a lot, did 4 or 5, maybe half a dozen at the most a year. But none of those women ever had a problem. After the ex encountered OSA or I forget the other dog's name. Once that's all it took. I'll give you a good example of that here in a minute. But 8 or 9 years later, one of the guys knew what I was doing, sent me this newspaper article. It seems like Sweden was legislating against domestic violence. And I mean, they do things real big time and real different there, right? So they came up with, their legislature came up with this 3-pronged attack. A woman who'd been abused could have, I think for like up to a year, their choice of 3 things. They would supply them with a cell phone that was equipped to do nothing but dial 911, a 24-hour-a-day bodyguard, or a trained dog. At the end of 1 year of those 3 solutions, and the phone was the one that most of them chose. They didn't want a bodyguard in there on their privacy, and then others were afraid they couldn't handle a dog. But of those 3 options, the only one of the women that had never had a bad incident were all the ones who had the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So, you've done some home invasions
Mm-hmm.
to test the dogs. You've seen how they bite out here. What do you think about women and dogs? I'm hitting him on the spot here, folks.
Not really. I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't want one. The perpetrator cannot manipulate the dog, and the dog is pretty much loyal to the woman.
Yeah.
And female dogs are actually, when it comes to their territory, they're a little more chippy than the male dogs are.
Yes.
You don't go into somebody's. I won't. I mean, I speak from experience. Home invasions, the male dogs, they'll look back, and the first time you go in, they'll look back to get approval. A couple of females, just right. They don't
Right
have.
at you.
They don't ask for nobody's. That's theirs.
Yeah.
So
Good point. Yeah. So I chose female just because I had my personal dog who she was really tough, and I'd put her up against Godzilla. But then as time went on, I realized exactly what Scott just said. Female dogs can go spend 24 hours with somebody in another house or territory, have 2 meals there.
assimilate.
Yep. So they were great. Now, you know, I know there's some people that'll say, you know, I'll just go get a Schutzhund dog or an IPG dog or whatever. And there's things that all the sport dogs, all the police dogs, all the military dogs, and all the guard dogs have in common. They all got teeth in their mouth.
Yep.
After that, all the training is unique to that need,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
Like,
That goes with any training.
yeah, right. Like you did the Doberman with the barking hold out here.
Mhm.
A Schutzhund or IPG exercise today, right? Would you want to send your dog after a bona fide thief with a weapon and have him just sit and bark?
No. It's very intimidating when he's in your face.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it, no. Not really.
No, not really.
No, it wouldn't do anything.
No. Every situation demands its own skills. Period.
Barkless runner.
That's why.
A barkless runner.
Yeah.
They'll chase you down and you won't know what hit you.
Yeah. So when I started this, I learned about needs that women, and first off, you got to remember, these are women who've probably spent years being abused. They are naturally a little timid in the first place. Things are more difficult. One of the reasons so many of them are killed by their own gun is because to make that snap decision to harm someone that they used to think loved them is difficult. And they're going to hesitate. And it's that hesitation that allows them slime balls to grab their weapon. So the first thing we had to do,
Oh, I just wanted to let you know you have a gentleman from Australia listening in,
okay,
and he said that it's hard to find trainers like us, like you. It says people here in Australia, it's mostly sport-based.
yeah, it's very sport-based. I've been fortunate enough to go down there a time or two. Maria, Tony, I hope you're listening some, but Yes, sir. I agree with you, and I appreciate that question, that statement, because that's exactly what I'm getting at. Every situation is unique. Every discipline for a sport or a police or a military or guard or domestic violence is unique. What I found out with dogs for domestic violence victims is the dog has to literally make the decision to stop the guy on their own, because the women are going to, most of the time,
Freeze up.
they're gonna freeze up.
And it's not saying anything derogatory. It's just what they've been through.
Yeah.
And there's probably some out there that'll. It's not all cases. I know a few crazy ladies, yeah. But for the, well, for the majority though, that dog,
Yeah.
it's taught a different way. Let's
Right.
just say that.
Right,
Not to
right,
get into specifics, but
Right. So we had to come up with a way for these dogs to make the decision on their own. Now, there's going to be people that'll say, well, in my state, if a dog bites somebody, most of the states in the U.S. Follow what they call the castle doctrine, which is a person has a right to protect their own. And so, I think there's a little exaggeration about you're going to get sued and they're going to. No, if you're literally in fear for your life.
there's a few states that don't.
Yeah.
California don't have it.
Yeah, and believe it or not, Oklahoma's terrible on dogs,
Yep.
of all places.
We talked about the castle doctrine last year or so. We had
Yeah.
it's part of our series.
Yeah.
We explained it.
We might ought to explain it again here, but typically in 85% of the country, you're going to be allowed, if your dog steps up and fights for you, you're not going to have a problem. Again, the problem is because we have to have a dog, or these people have to have a dog that makes the decision that it's warranted, that this person's being too aggressive, and 2 minutes later turn around and maybe go walk through a kitty daycare. So the types of dogs I use in the domestic violence program, and there weren't a lot. There really weren't. I was probably 95. In a 10 or 12 year period, I probably had 7 or 8 different dogs. These dogs had to be outgoing, because some of the women that would get the dogs, they're doing it only because they're desperate. They got black eyes and broke bones, and they are scared. I actually thought about writing a little short book about some of my favorite guard dog stories, and they all involved, as I found out, domestic violence victims. So when you're training for this sort of thing, it takes a certain type of dog. And
Dog
it
has to have confidence.
Yeah.
Because I've met a few ladies over the years to come out here, and they were actually at the end of the road.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know what to do anymore.
Right.
And the dog has to have not to interrupt you, but the dog has to be a thinker, like you said.
Yeah.
And give them the security they need to feel with the dog and the trust.
Right. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, they literally have to draw some confidence from that dog. So these are unique, special dogs, but they're very, very, very effective. Mm-hmm. I will tell you the very last case I had actually was after I came here to Dallas-Fort Worth. Again, when I had a little bit of notoriety for what I'd done. I actually put out a few guard dogs while I was here. Some people called me and had some really bad theft problems in downtown Fort Worth. So I did a couple of guard dogs while I was here before I was getting this kennel started. And I had a lady who showed up. She showed up originally with a 6-month-old German Shepherd. And she's wanted her dog trained. So we did the obedience with him. And, she went home. She was happy. I think he was 6 months old when she brought him to me originally. She calls me 3 months later, so the dog had been 8 or 9 months old. And she says she wanted her German Shepherd pup trained to protect her. She had a crazy boyfriend. She, thank God, had never married the guy. A crazy boyfriend who was stalking her, threatening her if she didn't come back to him, this sort of thing. And she wanted to train her dog so he could protect her. And, I asked her the two questions I asked them all. How well does your dog know this guy? And she said, well, I've been dating him for I was dating him when I got the pup, so he watched the pup grow up. Scott's already got to the end of that story. Unlikely that he's going to be able to, that the dog's going to be able to intimidate this guy. Highly unlikely. But I had a dog named Autumn. And let me tell you, Autumn was probably as bad a winch as I have ever dealt with. She was tough. She was a big girl, and whenever she went to bite, she never went to just bite somebody. She went to crack a bone or break a neck. She was vicious. Sweet as can be. I had to watch her a little bit. Every now and then we were at a dog show in California, and the judge walked up behind me to say hello. And she was laying down, and she didn't allow anybody to walk up behind me. And I just looked, and I heard a scream, and I turned around and looked, and there was Rodney behind me. Thank goodness Rodney's about 6'4", canine handler out there in California. About 6'4", and Autumn from the ground could only jump 6'2". She was snapping at his throat. So that's what I mean when I say a domestic violence dog has to make their own decisions. And one of the things she did not tolerate was anyone walking up behind me. So I told this lady, I'm trying not to use her name here, take Autumn, we'll play with her for a day or two till she likes you. Take her home, bring your dog here, I'll keep him here and I'll work with him a little bit. So she took Autumn home, and I think probably 3 to 4 weeks passed, had another word from her. Another week passes, and I'm thinking, I better call her and see what's going on, and she calls me. And she says, problem solved. Autumn took care of it. I said, really? What happened? This is on a Sunday morning. She says, he tried to come in through my back door last night. I said, well, give me some info. What exactly happened? And she said she was sleeping. It was around 1:30, midnight 1:30, somewhere around in there. And all of a sudden, Autumn started scratching at the door. She said, I thought maybe she needed to go to the bathroom or something. So I got up and opened the door. And I lay back down on the bed. I should have let her out, but I didn't. I just lay back down on the bed and closed the door because she wanted to sleep. She said all of a sudden she heard this, and she jumps up and she goes, crap, something's going on. She runs out of the bedroom, down the hall to her back door, and she's got one of these sliding glass patios. And she said Autumn is just going berserk. There's slobber all up and down that glass, and the dog is just, so she throws it open, she turns on the porch light, throws open the door. Autumn just shoots out like a rocket. And she hears her barking and barking and barking, and she finally quits barking, comes back. She's stepped just outside her door now. She comes back, looks at her, runs back to the gate, and she does that twice, and the lady figures it's safe, right? She goes around, and the gate was closed, and she just assumed that the guy had come in her backyard and was sliding that door open. Somebody was sliding the door open, or at that back door. That's what got Autumn up. So she calls me the next day and she says, I'll bring Autumn back to you Sunday morning. I can bring her back. She scared him off, and I know he's scared to death of dogs. He won't ever come back again. And I said, how do you know it was him? Well, it had to be him. No, it didn't have to be him. Could have been a burglar, Could have been maybe somebody, you didn't pay the bill on time or something. That, you don't know it was him. And she said, yeah, you're right. I said, let's just lay low for a couple more days, see what happens. So that afternoon, phone rings, and it's this lady. She says, it was him. I said, how do you know it was him? She said, because he made copies of keys to my front door, back door, and I got a padlock on my gate. And after I hung up on you, I went around the outside, and the padlock was on the ground. and it was open. It wasn't cut. So I said, well, yeah, it probably was him. Starting to sound like it. She said, well, and I just got a phone call from him. Really? She said, yeah. She said, he's fixing to call and report me. And I said, report you for what? Now remember, she came to me originally with a 6-month-old German Shepherd. And I learned early on, when I started feeling domestic violence, is that black dogs all look the same in the dark.
Yeah.
So, yes, she says, I don't know what you did to Ace, her dog, the puppy, but you've made him crazy, and I'm reporting you to the Humane Society. They're going to come and take him away. So, it had to be him at the back door.
Yeah.
So, and I've actually swapped out a few dogs. It's not the first time I did it.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise, yeah. So I would just encourage anybody, and I tell you another one. In Texas, the first, I guess, private individual I ever trained a dog for was a gentleman who had, his daughter was going off to college and she was a barrel racer. And he wanted a dog in the truck with her every time she went out to a rodeo. You know, if your dog is properly trained, they will go out in public and make a better impression than most of your kids will.
True.
And your kid can't bite near as hard as the dogs can. Mm-hmm. So, if you know anyone in a domestic violence situation, you know, we still try to work with people. I don't do it near as much as I used to. When I moved here, I kind of quit doing that. Autumn was the last dog I had for that sort of thing. But you know, encourage these people to look in. If you don't do nothing but get a little yapper from the front door.
A bluff dog.
Yeah.
9% of the time, you got something barking on the other side of the door, ain't no one coming in.
Exactly. So, and again, if you know anyone in that situation, have them call me. I'll be more than happy to help them, and we'll be more than happy to point them in the direction of a good dog. Mm-hmm. You can get great dogs. Don't forget this, folks. You can get great dogs at your local animal shelter. Mm-hmm. And it's real easy to teach them to bark. And somebody you don't like's on the other side of that door, you just give that dog that barking command. And there's ways you can teach what Scott calls a bluff dog, where they'll bark on command at somebody or where they'll bark at anybody that comes looking in one of your windows. You can train all these behaviors in your dog and have a very versatile security system.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I had a guy come out here who was in the security business with alarms. We were talking not too long ago. And I told him, I said, you know, the main difference between a security alarm and a trained dog is real simple. And don't get me wrong, these electronic alarms are great. They're wonderful. You know, their job is to let the call center somewhere in Arizona know that your house is being broke into and record the time, exact date that this incident occurs, right? Mm-hmm. And they do that very well. The difference is with a dog, and when you come home, you'll be able to retrieve this information for your insurance files or claims. You know, I lost a television set, I lost an iPad, I lost, you know, you can list everything that was stolen while the alarm was going off. Whereas if you have a guard dog,
you might find stuff.
Yes, body parts may be strewn all over your living room, and you will still own your television, your iPad, and all those other appliances. So I hope this puts some ideas in some people's heads. Mm-hmm. It's a problem that needs to be taken care of. I think.
It's always good to have different options and learn more about different things to help people out there. There's more than one way to skin a cat. So.
Yep.
Well, I know that I feel safe when I'm home and Scott is not home. I got 3 dogs. I feel very safe because I know nobody's coming in my house.
Right.
I have no friends.
And I don't like to do, you know, I don't like to deal with guns, but you know what? I got 3 loaded ones. Those are my dogs.
Yeah, yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
On guard, watching.
And the one thing that people don't think about with a gun, because that's, first off, you got to keep it locked up, especially if you have kids around, right? And I can whistle and call my dog from any room in the house. I have tried. I have whistled. I have bought whistles. I can't get that damn gun to jump out of that cabinet for nothing. It just sits there until I go get it, at which time they could have been coming in. So,
Yeah, well, the dog is already there.
yeah, yeah.
Every second counts in those situations.
Yeah, in those situations. It's a pretty violent world we get to live in these days.
Yep.
So,
But no matter what situation you're in, no matter what anybody says, domestic violence, sport, training, guard dogs, whatever situation you're in, it's all about the dogs, people.
hope
It
you enjoyed
always
it.
is.
See y'all next week, we
Take
hope.
care. We'll see y'all later.
Thank you, Australia.